Hello, everybody. It's Susan Clinton and my co-host Erica Mello. And this is going to be our podcast number 103. And before we hop into the podcast and talk about our client this time, Erica and I wanted to give everybody a little bit of an update of what's going on. Thank you for your grace this summer. I have been in significant transition, leaving my practice, my current practice, and opening my new practice as I move with my retiring husband to Northern Michigan. So we've been offline for a little bit, trying to navigate the waters of logistics and Airbnbs to stay in and furniture moving and all of the other business. But we do have some fun things in store. We know we dangled some carrots for everybody earlier this summer. So those carrots are getting bigger now. First of all, yeah, they are. First of all, we'd like to thank everybody. We have 103 five-star reviews, and we can't thank you enough. The more 5 stars reviews we get, the more people you can find us. And we have people kind of adding in and logging in every month new. So that means that we're still getting the word out. And we really appreciate your help in helping us do that.
Yeah.
Erica, you want to talk a little bit about the membership coming up?
Yes, and also with regards to the reviews, we had mentioned that we're going to pull from random one or two random people who've left us a review for our free webinar. So we're going to be doing that on the next podcast. So the next podcast we'll pull some names from wherever you listen to podcasts. We have all the reviews compiled, and we will do that. And with regards to the podcast membership, I know we've talked about that for a while. It's going to be sort of a significant extension of our podcast. We will have significant show notes, and we will be probably having one Q&A with Susan and myself, as well as another podcast. So you will get a total of three episodes plus show notes, and that podcast membership will be coming up in the early fall. So look out for that. Our website's been redone. We had to migrate it over from another platform, so it's still toughtotreat.com. We have info on our podcast membership, and if you are interested in that, you just type your name and email into the form on the website, and we can certainly we'll put you on the wait list for that to get news. And you're also still getting, if you are not on our email list, please opt in on the toughtotreat.com. We have a Clinical Pearls PDF that I wrote, and a couple PDFs that Susan wrote on chronic pain and sleep, and it's fantastic wealth of information. So it's toughtotreat.com, and I think that's it, Susan.
Yeah, thank you. So we look forward to continuing to do our podcast out there every 2 weeks. And that will always stay. But our subscription is going to be a really great place for people to really come in and ask some deeper questions.
Yes.
And during the Q&A, we're also planning to open up some hot seats. So if people want to come into the Q&A live, they would have 20 minutes to ask a particular question about maybe a tough case that they're dealing with. So we do have that option for our members as well. So stay tuned. We're looking forward to our membership. We think it's going to be great. And we're excited to be able to extend our podcast in that direction for you. So, and enjoy podcast number 103. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tough to Treat. I'm Susan Clinton, and I'm with my co-host, Erica Mello. How are you, Erica?
I'm good, Susan. How are you?
Happy August.
Yes.
The dog days of August. It's been very hot here in Pittsburgh. I know it's been very hot in other places of the country, so I'm not going to complain.
Exactly.
But we're here, podcast number 103, and let's just get right to it. So today I wanted to talk about a client that I had that, for a lot of people, we overlook ankle sprains, and we overlook the sequela from ankle sprains because they heal so fast most of the time in our healthy population. And even when the population is super healthy, there's a lot of sequela that's left over, and we're not really addressing it as completely as I think we probably should, which is why I wanted to bring up this one client that I've had. And she's a client that's well known to me. I've seen her for some other issues, but she was out walking. So first of all, 52-year-old female, very healthy, very few health problems, is noticed in this perimenopausal to menopause time that certain things just aren't suiting her. So she has, kind of changed her diet, less sugar, really working on sleep, and has been doing, Peloton exercising at home during the whole lockdown, and then has now ventured out to do outdoor walking over the last, I would say, probably since April of last year, and likes to take nice long walks. Well, she was walking in the area, and the proverbial crack in the sidewalk just took her foot, and over she went, and she yeah, we've all experienced, like, where did that crack jump up and find us from, right? So she felt 3 pops and immediate pain and onset of swelling. So she was quite panicked and very nervous and didn't really know what to do. She was able to get up and kind of hobble home. And from there, she went to the ER, and she had some pictures that were pretty, significant. If you were ever treating acute ankle injuries, it would not look surprising to you. A lot of bruising and swelling on the lateral aspect of the ankle and the top of the foot. Circulation was good. Everything was fine. They gave her one of the little braces that tie up in the front, just a little kind of canvas brace. Yeah. Little stirrup brace that ties up in the front, and gave her some crutches and told her to, just weight bear as tolerated, stay off of it, as much as possible the first couple of days, but it's okay to stand on it. X-rays were fine, no fractures. And, she said starting, there was something that kind of intrigued her from the beginning. She recognized the pain on the outside of the ankle, but what she didn't understand was she was having a lot of pain underneath the midfoot.
Oh, okay.
Right underneath, if you wanted to point to it, right at the level underneath the navicular.
Yep.
Toward medial from the navicular. And that she also was having some kind of tenderness along the inside of the ankle as well, the medial side. So she did a sprain that really took her into a full inversion, enough to actually compress the medial tissues.
That's what I was just going to ask. Okay.
So this is a pretty significant ankle sprain.
Wow.
After about a week, she wasn't making the progress that she wanted to make. And so she did seek out the care of an orthopedic physician, who took more x-rays, explained to her about the medial compression, and told her it would take time to get better, and that if she wasn't moving along better in a week, to come back. So she did. It wasn't getting as better. She was still swelling quite a bit.
Wow.
And she was having, still some of that medial stuff, but it wasn't as bad. It just was very concerning to her. She is somebody who 4 years ago had a fracture of her other foot. So she was very concerned. There's that heightened sensitivity, like what's happened to this, and it's not that same foot, it's the other foot.
Right.
And so she was really kind of like, I really think something is wrong here. Something's fractured. This isn't good, because she had gone through quite a process of healing up her fracture on her other foot. So she went back to the orthopedic surgeon, and he booted her and gave her the boot and told her to wear it for 2 weeks. And she called him at the end of 2 weeks and said, I'm much better. He said, wear it for another week. So she did. And she felt like that the boot kind of really helped. It made her feel more confident and comfortable. And so she came out of the boot and started, just doing some simple exercises and walking. And he sent her to physical therapy, where they did, the usual progression, standing and weight bearing, and, weight shift, and standing on foam pads, to rebuild the proprioception, and, band exercises, and toe up and toe down exercises, progressing along a nice continuum.
Yeah.
And, step overs and things like that. And she felt like after a while, there were 2 things that kind of triggered her after a while. She said, after 4 weeks, I felt like I had plateaued, And she said, and I was still having pretty significant at this time pain on the medial side behind she called it behind my ankle bone, which we would all say posterior to the medial malleolus.
Malleolus.
Yeah. So she said, and she kept talking about it and no one was addressing it. So that was one reason she was ready to leave the practice. The other one was it was the time when we were opening back up a bit and everybody stopped masking, and she didn't feel comfortable being in the situation anymore. She's very cautious about everything.
Yeah.
So, which is fine. So anyway, she knows me. She came to me, and she said, I tried it for my own for another week, thinking maybe if I kind of stayed away from there, that it would settle down. But she said, here's my two problems. When she came in, she goes, after I exercise or get on the Peloton, I have a lot of swelling later in the day. And she said, and the thing that really is concerning me though is the pain that's coming down behind my ankle here and this pain underneath my foot. And I'm really concerned about it. And she said one day it was actually, she had felt like she had some numbness on the, underside of her toes. And so that kind of, like she said, that was it. I picked up the phone and called you and said, I need to get in. So we have somebody here who is now, kind of progressed along. At this point, she's about 12 weeks past the injury.
Yeah.
And she has made progress, but enough that, therapy just kind of said, you're fine, it'll just get better. Well, her expectation was there's still an issue here that nobody's addressing. And, so she felt like she was being kind of silenced, or dismissed, like there's nothing wrong. It's all fine. And in her mind, there is something wrong and it's not fine because she's got numbness on the bottom of her toes sometimes. And she's still swelling quite a bit. And she wasn't sure what expectations were and all of that. Mm-hmm. So really being able to talk about expectations to our clients, I think is as important as let's investigate what this pain is. Let's see what's happening here.
Right, especially with her history on the other.
Yeah, exactly. So, in really good questioning, I got her, I said, when did this really start this, and we were palpating. It's right, actually, it was so tender right underneath the malleolus, on the medial side. Like you could just trace a little smiley face right underneath it. And yes, there was some sensitivity along the back.
Yeah.
And, but as I kind of pressed, I just did a little, compression pushing up into the malleolus. And she said, yes, that's what hurts. And I said, when did that start? And so she was telling me, she goes, well, it was this and this. And she said, I started noticing after I came out of the boot. So
interesting. Her protection was taken away.
Yeah. Protection was taken away. But I said, where did the boot touch you?
Yeah.
Where did it touch you? And so she was basically weight bearing on her medial malleolus for 3 weeks. Yeah. So of course the tissue was very tender. And, and again, of course, you're right too. There was that extra layer of protection and, the fear and, kind of the overprotectiveness around the foot and ankle. And then we talked a little bit about the, posterior, tib nerve that comes down there. And I said it could have had some irritation. Yes. It may have been, compressed a little bit. Nerves are funny things. I said, when they're not moving well, they tend to get angry at us because they're not getting the blood flow that they should be getting. And, so that could be a setup of a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. Or it could be that the nerve got irritated wearing the boot. That happens. I said, but that doesn't mean, but we need to let's take care of it. Let's get it going and do some stuff so that we can get that nerve to start moving again and make it happy. But let's also figure out what's going on underneath the bottom of your foot as well. And, right at the level, as PTs, we all know the peroneus longus, has its attachment. Yeah. Underneath the fierce cuneiform at the bottom of the foot. And of course, that was where the pain was. Mm-hmm. And when you traveled up her leg, it was very, very interesting. I know we don't talk a lot about soft tissue and palpation, because we're looking for drivers and movers and all of this. But for her, it just seemed like the thing to do, what's going on here? What's happening with the pulley system from the peroneus, peroneal muscle group? Why is the tenderness on the medial side was really not that, deltoid ligament. It was really much more up. kind of, around the bottom of the malleolus and behind, where the nerve travels and
It's
tendons
almost like,
travel.
yeah, it's almost like the navicular gets sucked up into the medial malleolus because
Yeah,
of that. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And so, being able to find, it was with the tendinous insertion was very, very tender, of course. And then traveling up the peroneus muscle bellies, up by the fibula, were also really over recruiting. You could just really,
Yeah.
feel that they were just over recruiting. And, and what she was kind of surprised, like, oh, I never even thought about up here, any of that. But you could just, she could feel how the muscles were kind of like really working hard.
Yeah.
And I said, that's, just kind of like the whole sprint and splint thing. We have pain, we're going to have muscles that are going to, get hyper excited and overwork, and we're going to have stuff that's going to underwork. That's part of that experience. So, and then just really evaluating movement of the fibular head. And it just wasn't, when she would bend her foot down, it was like, it wasn't the ankle that was limiting the motion. It was like getting caught up at the lateral part of the knee.
Yeah, the tib fib. Yeah.
And it wasn't because the joint was out of place or the joint was stuck. It was because the muscles were over recruiting there.
Yeah, you see that sometimes with some, like even like high ankle sprain, you'll go up to your tib fib, right? And it's not even anywhere near the ankle. So that's somewhat common in those higher, not that she had a high ankle sprain, but that's very true.
But she could have. Part of this could be part of a high ankle sprain. Absolutely. Three pops, you don't know where it is. That could be disguised in, obviously the biggest thing that they see is the swelling on the lateral side of the ankle, and the bruising, from the drainage down there. And so obviously some ligaments were partially disrupted, but which ones? And also, was there some shearing, into that, tibial fibular joint there, that distal joint there. So, and interosseous as well. I think we kind of overlooked the play of that just a little bit. And was that the reason that the peroneal muscles were really holding on harder? The attempt for the brain to kind of like, we just want to pull all this together here.
Absolutely.
And take care of it. Where she was really having problems functionally, she could get on the Peloton. And it's interesting, she never takes her shoes out of the Peloton. She just puts her feet in and ties them up and goes. She doesn't like to do the thing where you have to push your foot out sideways to come out of the clips. But she's been doing that before there was an ankle injury. So that was not, like a fear-based type of modification. And she was okay on the Peloton. Peloton feels good. I can do it. I can even come out of the saddle and feel okay. She was starting to experiment with that. So she was good there. She said, but so I'm so confused because I haven't been back to yoga class, because when I get into certain poses, I really feel the pain. And so we explored that and talked about, she said, I think it's because the Peloton holds me still.
Yeah.
There's no room for wiggling around.
Yeah.
And so we explored, we did soft tissue work. First of all, we did some deep friction massage along the peroneus longus tendon insertion. I got her to do it. I wanted her to kind of get in there and feel that and rub that and take care of that herself. We talked a little bit about lymphatic drainage and the swelling and what was happening there. And with exercise, I said, it might not be a bad idea, since you're out walking now and, you're on the bike, to get a pair of, runner's compression socks, and let's just see how they do.
Just going to ask you that.
Yeah. Why not? Right. The tissue needed a little support. It was going to feel a little bit good for her, pulling it on and off, help the blood flow and all of that. Yeah. So we, and I showed her how to, use a tennis ball to kind of like help those muscles that were overworking on the lateral side of her leg. Just some things she could do for herself, to care for herself. It's like David Butler said, she needed to fall back in love with her leg again.
I know. Yeah. You know what I do sometimes? No, sorry to interrupt. I have like, if they don't have a ball or anything, I'll have them like go on to like a stair and like go on the side of the stair and like rub their foot on a stair.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you could just lay on the carpet, with your foot, let your leg
and use your other foot. Yeah.
Just move your leg so that you get we just talked about it. I said, it's just basically taking the skin and moving the skin. That's what we want to have happen.
Yeah.
So you don't have to get in deep. You don't have to do crazy deep massage. You just need to, let's just move the skin. And here's the theory behind that for all of us is that neuromodulation
Neuromodulation.
kind of thing, to think about here. I'm doing the little quote marks. Is that basically what I was trying to get her to do was get at those peripheral nerves by going through the cutaneous nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we could get at that, the nerve that goes around the top of the foot. We could get to the posterior tib. We could get to those things. So she did that, and she came back for a couple of visits, and then we played around with yoga poses, and she would get into warrior, and and on her foot that was behind her. So the warrior pose, as people know, you're kind of like in stride.
Yep.
And the foot behind her was the one that was hurting. And it was just basically working with her, like, shorten your stride up.
Yeah.
Does that feel better now? Oh, it does. Just really beginning to explore what you can do, getting curious about what you can do, and not worrying about what you can't do. Like, okay, so if that's too much, bring it in a little bit. If that's too much, twist this way. If that's so we played around with a lot of those things that had meaning for her.
And the warrior is when the back foot, when the heel is raised, right, Susan?
So there's 3 different warrior poses,
right?
And you definitely have the back foot, and it's usually at please, for all you lovely yoga people, I'm not trying to butcher yoga at all here, but generally in a couple of the poses, the front foot is facing straight, like if the head is facing straight, the foot's facing straight. And then the back foot is at a 90-degree.
Oh, I see. So her heel was on the ground. Got it.
Yeah, and the inside, so it would be pulling on the inside. The tissue stretching, the tissue tension would be on the inside, the medial side of the foot and ankle.
Yeah.
Where she was feeling symptoms. The ones that concerned her the most. So we got her really working on some of those things and positions that felt good. Like let's go as far as you can go with your stride, and then pull it in a little bit and have it feel good, because you're working all the other system, in that position. And as this begins to change and you're not feeling, you're not feeling the symptoms as much, you can go into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so she, that was good. And we just did a lot of changes and modifications to how she, just show me this one. What happens if we do this? What happens if you move your hips this way or this way? Just giving her the tools for curiosity and getting out there. And so, so she had a couple of visits, and then she came back recently, and everything is so much better, especially the swelling. The compression socks have really helped the swelling. And so now the biggest issue for her has become just kind of balance and trusting her balance. And she's like back in yoga class doing the modifications, happy to be there because they distance and they wear masks, and she's very comfortable there. And she's had a few privates with the person who runs the yoga studio, so she's very happy about that because she feels very listened to and supported, and she feels like she's on a good journey back, with some of those things. But she's, she says that she's really standing next to the wall so she can put her fingers on the wall for a lot of the balance poses. So, we kind of, instead of just looking at her balance a little bit, I had her just walk. I said, we didn't do this the last couple of times. We were busy doing these movements and these things that you wanted to do. But I said, you're out walking. Let's go for a walk. So she put on her shoes, and out the front door we went, and down the sidewalk. And, I was just kind of, just hanging out with her, just having her walk up and down the sidewalk just a little bit. And then I said, let's go around the corner and let's just circle the block here. And I just went with her. And one of the things that I noticed was that she was staring at the ground. I would have never seen this. She told me that she looked at the ground a lot, but I had no idea how much until I went with her.
Wow.
So sometimes I think we need to do things in real time. It's like when you, are videoing your people that, or having them get videoed at the gym and how they're doing things, because we just need to see it. To be able to help them in real time make, corrections. So, I kind of let it go for a bit, and I tried to engage her in a little conversation, and she'd laugh and look over at me for a second and then but back down. I mean, she was like fixated on the ground. And, I said, let's just stop for a second. And I said, what's going on? And she said, I don't know. But she goes, I told you, I'm worried about running into a crack on the sidewalk, is finally what she
Of
said.
course. Yeah.
And I said, okay, I get it. I totally get it. I would be too. But walking around with your head going down isn't going to change your balance any. So where do you feel safe? Is there a place that, look around your environment right here, right now. Is there a place where you would feel a little bit safer walking without having to stare at the ground? And, so she did. And she said, I think this whole set of sidewalk right here is fine. I said, okay, so let's do this. Let's glance down, check it out, and then walk at least 10 steps before you glance down again. Let's see how that feels. Let's just play with this and see what we can come up with. And so we got her, kind of moving her head up and down, which was the whole goal here, was like, you've got to get the vestibular system moving again. It's not being challenged in the Peloton. It's being challenged somewhat in yoga, which is why it's showing up. But it's really not being challenged at all in walking. And so it's getting really fixed in that, downward gaze position.
Yes.
And, and that kind of feeds into the whole neurotag thing, like kind of fear and the sensitivity and the other pieces as well. So we did some work outside up and down curves and kind of played around a little bit. And then she sat down and really went through some of the places that she felt like she should really be out walking, that would be less threatening to her. And, she goes, and I'm walking so slow. And I said, well, that's okay. You can pick up the pace when you feel more comfortable. But for right now, let's just get your head moving around in different things. So we came up with the idea of, like, what is it that attracts you to the walk? Like, what do you look for? Why do you go on a walk outside? Obviously for the right reasons, because it feels good. It's good for me, sunshine.
Outside,
But, I said, well, what do you look at usually? And she talked about a lot about architecture, which is why she was walking on a lot of sidewalks. And I said, well, what would happen if you actually needed to, what would happen if you actually took pictures of some of that interesting architecture? And she was like, oh, I didn't think of that. So I know you guys have heard me talk about this before, but sometimes something else to do during your walk, especially if you're worried about pain or falling or something, can be most interesting to kind of make it, just jazz it up a little bit. We talked about walking in a different direction, maybe going to the park, doing some easy work on walking on some of the gravel pathways, and then
graded exposure.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I did was I did hand her, a telescoping walking stick. And I said, she goes, well, I don't really want to use that if I don't have to. And I said, you don't, I just want you to know it's here. So why don't you spend this time, this next week or so, and just go out and explore and see what you need. And let it and see how you come about. But I said, there's always things that we can get, that just kind of can help your balance just a little bit or make it a little bit more fun for you. But if this doesn't appeal to you, then no, we won't do it. Some people it really speaks to. Other people are just like, oh no, I don't want to have anything like that. And then lately we have just kind of gotten back to doing the clock yourself. That's the app I talked about before on things, to just really kind of help get some speed and coordination, with like stepping quicker and stepping reactively to whenever the app calls out the number. And that's worked really well. She's really enjoyed that. So I think the moral to the story here, and her pain has gone way down. She still has moments, like she'll tell me, I still notice that if I get stressed or if I'm in a hurry, I'll feel it. Like if she like dashes out of the car really quick or something, or, steps off a curb really fast, she'll kind of feel it a little bit. But she did say the big victory was, and I didn't realize that this was a goal for her. Sometimes we don't know what they are. She goes, I was able to sit with my foot tucked up underneath me the other day.
Good for her.
So she's done really well, and she's got all the tools now to keep progressing and to do, to move forward. But she's got some great tools for understanding about how balance can really be challenged if you don't move your head and your eyes around.
Yeah, yeah.
And that can be a big part of that reconnecting the central nervous system to the injury,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I think that people at the beginning, like post rehab, like after acute ankle sprain, because I've had a similar patient recently, not recently, this year, beginning of the year. They don't like you do your traditional AP, sagittal plane rehab, and it's not, you need to train that side to side as well, and it's not just about putting a TheraBand around your ankles and doing inversion and eversion. That's kind of
Yeah.
not going to really cut it, and actually that made my patient worse. And so I think what you're bringing her into function, but thinking about what is like from this soft tissue perspective, what's limiting that mobility. Yes, she has a whole other history with her other foot, which comes into play when she really has to sort of leave the PT nest, so to speak. But you need to be able to train those lateral movements outside of an open chain TheraBand here, people, and do it and do it in different ways. And I know people are going to ask, did you give her like nerve glides to do like
That's
like an
coming.
additional? Okay, all right,
That's
there you
coming.
go.
So yes, doing traditional nerve glides wasn't going to really get her anywhere. It
Yeah.
didn't, it just wasn't when we did some, she could do it, but it didn't really alter much. When talking about lateral movement, so the next phase that I took her to after doing the clock yourself, because I just wanted her to get comfortable with stepping sideways and stuff, was into braided walking and
Yeah.
twisting and turning, and that would every time get that little what she kind of called that nervy pain to kind of kick in a little bit.
Yeah.
So one of the things we did was I decided instead of trying to lock her up from up above, she's very flexible, to get nerve glides going. I decided that I was going to stay with this whole cutaneous nervous system and see if we couldn't get the nerve mobilized from below. It just seemed like, she had the injury from below. It just, nothing up above was affecting what she was doing, but the movement of her foot was. And I thought, okay, there's something going on here. So I just laid her on her tummy and grabbed a hold of her calcaneal fat pad,
Mm-hmm.
and not the calcaneus, just the fat pad, and did a little twisting of it, a little
Mm-hmm.
rocking and rolling and twisting, and that definitely could bring that on just a bit. So I thought, okay, so this is probably where things are kind of getting caught up, perhaps. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just had her stand, and we just put her foot, on the floor where your skin would get stuck.
Yes.
So I like have a rug, and then I have a, kind of a floor that looks like a wooden floor, but it's really linoleum. So, you can kind of like, so I had her push her heel down into the floor, so that she could feel like her heel kind of sink into the floor a little bit. And then I had her basically just start twisting her foot gently so that the calcaneal tissue, that calcaneal fat pad and tissue was staying still, and she was moving the system over it.
So you're doing forefoot or inversion eversion?
All.
Okay.
Yeah, play with it
Okay.
all, like just
Okay.
kind of like a corkscrew almost.
Got it. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So just holding on to the tissue, just like I held the tissue and corkscrewed
Yeah.
it myself. Now the floor is holding the tissue and she's corkscrewing.
Got it.
So like closed chain
Yes.
when she was doing it,
Yeah.
open chain when I was doing it.
Yeah.
And that was a real big game changer.
Yes, I bet.
Something she could do on her own whenever she felt the stuff. She could stop and work on that. And that has also been a big player in her changing up her stuff. Now, I did not do that early on.
No.
And there was just things were too hot early on. Even though it was 12 weeks post, there was still a lot of irritability in the system. This was something that was better done a bit later when she was doing more movement and doing things, and we could really identify, what was bringing, because everything got so much better. It was like there were certain things that would still bring it on. And so that's when it was, for me, it felt like that was the time to really address that, because I felt like it was a pretty aggressive, it doesn't have to be, it could have been very gentle, for sure. But for us, it just came about at the time when reasoning to me was like, I think we need to kind of go at this from underneath the foot rather than from the body on top of the foot for
Right,
the nerve glides.
right,
So
right,
that
right,
was the reason I did that. And it was based on, some of the braided walking and turning and stuff, or step downs and things that would kind of get that nerve to kind of go boo, at her.
Yeah, you can
So,
put the heel on the floor, and sometimes what I do is I have them put their part of their
mhm.
other forefoot on a towel, so because it's
Yeah,
hard to move.
absolutely.
They make these little discs and things, but her heel would be moving there. So,
Yeah, no,
um,
I wanted her skin stuck on the floor. So yeah, but you
yes,
can definitely put a ball underneath her forefoot and have her just roll that forefoot on the ball with her heel staying still. There's a lot of, the yoga was probably already doing some of that
yeah, yeah,
because of the movement of you're planting your feet and moving your body, and
yeah,
so she was already getting a lot of that. We just got really specific into something just to see how we could, kind of begin to get a little bit more movement in that peripheral nervous system.
yeah. And I think we always talk about how we don't progress our patients, or we don't, what's the word, we don't, not aggressive, but we don't take them through the full sort of progression of exercise because people have in their minds ankle sprain will do this. That's not the case. I've personally suffered from multiple sprains, and to this day I still feel my right ankle. Okay, and I had a sprain years ago, and I know when I feel that, everything else goes sort of funky in my system.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to be able to think and be creative. And times have changed, people. We need to really progress our patients through the full range. It may not be as sensitive as this patient, but nonetheless, it's not just, okay, let's do here and you go, you'll heal. I don't agree with that with ankle sprains, because feet
Mm-hmm.
are such a common driver for so many other issues,
Right.
right? So you need to rehab an ankle sprain to the end and not just send them home with a TheraBand, because it will drive dysfunction somewhere else at some point down the line. That's
Yeah, and I
my
know we talked on
opinion.
the previous podcast about, even rehab with basketball players with ankle sprains, really having to
Yes.
watch them in full function when they go up with in a diagonal position with an arm up, and what's the pattern that's happening there when you pull them into the full central nervous system diagonal movement pattern. Is their lower part of their system participating or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's definitely a lot more. I've seen this a lot in, and dancers and musicians as well. It's just like, the feet are a big part of what goes on there, and it needs to be brought into the entire system.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
includes vestibular, it includes neurotags,
Yes.
it includes movements that humans should be doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Like people would say, well, don't tuck your foot up underneath you. No, why can't she should be able to do that if she wants to,
Right.
you know? It just needed to, feel more comfortable and, less painful for her to be able to do it. But and I really think that just the compression, the light compression socks, those are 10 millimeters of mercury or less, running socks are so comfortable to pull on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all she did was wear them for if she was walking a lot and for exercise. And that really seemed to kind of help bring that swelling on down.
Do you like a specific compression sock for running? Is there something? I know people may ask. That's why I'm asking.
No,
No.
they just regular running stores have them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think they need to be more than 10 millimeters of mercury unless somebody has a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we're dealing with something else, then that's a whole nother issue that's beyond this podcast. But
Yeah.
just wanted something to like move her skin.
Yes.
Again, in the beginning, I was just going after the cutaneous nervous system to help her, get the overactivity of the perineal muscles down to, and to change the lymphatics a bit, because the lymphatics and the cutaneous nervous system all live in the skin.
Hmm.
And, just any way to get her skin moving, but it also got her touching her leg and in a meaningful way,
Yep.
so that she could tap back into her internal self healer
Right.
and
Exactly.
know what she needed to do to take care of herself and to move herself forward.
Well, that's the thing. You gave her tools to help her, as
Yeah.
like empowerment, whereas the other people, not to, but just take a TheraBand and go. That's not really empowering, right? It's not going to empower people. So I think that taking them on, progressing them to the end, I think is so important. So
And
this is
exploring
good. I like this.
and exploring the things that were important to her.
Totally.
sure. Yeah. So,
It'll be meaningful in the end.
mhm.
This is great. Thank
Yep.
you.
So give that calcaneal movement thing a try for people with heel
Totally.
pain and medial ankle pain and those things. It's a great way to get at the medial side because those plantar nerves come through there, and
Yes.
moving that calcaneus tissue around can really be a nice cutaneous way to give input and pull on the peripheral nervous system there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you can do a lot of people, you can look at the foot in so many different positions, sitting, prone, supine, standing, have them do a heel raise. It's not, to be creative, because
Mm-hmm.
it is so important to rehab the foot. I can't stress it enough. So,
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
thank you,
And
Susan.
we'll see, and yes, absolutely. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.